Konnichiwa, and thank you very much for your interest in the final rule on accredited third-party certification. I hope this presentation is useful. So what does the rule do? I will focus quite a bit on the scope of the rule because I think it's important to understand that this rule is a little bit different than the other rules that my colleagues have presented on today, because this is a rule that is essentially operational of a program. It doesn't really establish any underlying requirements for food safety certification or accreditation, but what it does is it ensures that the FDA's recognition of accreditation bodies and the accreditation of third-party certifiers it is done in a manner that ensures their competence and their independence. So essentially the rule establishes a voluntary program, and these bodies that I discussed, the accreditation body would accredit the certification body, who would then conduct food safety audits and issue certifications of foreign facilities and the foods for humans and animals that they produce. So what certifications are needed, are envisioned under the third-party certification rule. I want to stress at the outset that routinely, importers will generally not be required to obtain certifications to import their products into the United States. We've had quite a bit of confusion about this, and I just want to stress that this is not a routine program. It's actually very limited in scope, which is why I've been fairly quiet so far today. So certifications will be used for two specific purposes under this program. So first, to establish the eligibility of foreign facilities to be used by importers to participate in the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program, which, as we've discussed previously, offers the opportunity for expedited review and entry of food. And the second need for certification under the program is that they will be used for the admissibility of food, subject to a risk-based determination by FDA that import certification is required in a specific instance. So FDA would make a specific risk-based determination that a food offered for import would require import certification. Factors that FDA would use to make this determination include the capability of the regulatory system of the exporting nation and the risk of the food itself. There are exemptions to the import certification requirement for alcoholic beverages and also products subject to USDA oversight, such as meat, poultry, and processed egg products. So essentially the structure of the program you have here in the diagram. At the very top, FDA has oversight of the entire program. FDA recognizes accreditation bodies based on criteria laid out in the rule, relating, as I said, to competency and impartiality. Then below that, the accreditation bodies that FDA has recognized would accredit qualified third-party certification bodies. Under that, then, the certification bodies would audit and issue certifications for foreign facilities and foods that require such certifications under the two instances that I previously mentioned, for VQIP and for the import certification. And then finally, at the lowest is the foreign facilities that choose in this voluntary program to be audited by an accredited certification body for the purposes I just mentioned. So to go through and explain a little bit about what exactly these organizations are, what are accreditation bodies, who is eligible. It can be a foreign government or foreign agency, or it can be a private third party. We have laid out in the final rule that an accreditation body may use conformance to ISO standard 17011 to supplement it as needed to meet the requirements of the rule in order to demonstrate to FDA that they meet the requirements to be a recognized accreditation body. The rule lays out several responsibilities for accreditation bodies, including assessing their accredited third-party certification bodies, to monitor their performance, to assess and correct problems in their own performance. So it's important to note that accreditation bodies will be conducting self-assessments, and then submit reports and other notifications to FDA regarding the accreditation body activities. And then finally, maintain and provide access FDA access to certain records when requested by FDA. Now, I know this has been an issue in other rules, so I just wanted to mention that, yes, in fact, we did amend the final rule to allow that these records can be maintained in a language other than English, but then when FDA requests the records, they must be submitted to FDA with a translation within a reasonable period of time. There is also a provision within the rule to allow FDA to directly accredit third-party certification bodies, essentially to act as the FDA would act as an accreditation body itself, but only in a very specific circumstance. If 2 years after the program comes into effect, FDA has not recognized an accreditation body that meets program needs. So this could be based on geographic need, if there's no accreditation bodies in a certain geographic area, or if FDA believes that there's a lack of accreditation resources for a certain industry, for example. So now I'll go down to the certification body level. Eligible entities can be either a foreign government or a third-party cooperative type entity. Similar to the accreditation body, a certification body can also use documentation of its conformance with ISO standards. In this case, ISO 17021 or 17065, supplemented as necessary to demonstrate compliance with the rule that they meet FDA requirements to be a third-party certification body. Certification bodies also have several responsibilities under this rule to ensure their audit agents that actually conduct audits are competent and objective, to verify the effectiveness of a facility's corrective actions in case there are deficiencies noted in the audit, to assess and correct any problems in their own performance. Once again, certification bodies as well are required to perform self-assessments, and also to maintain and provide FDA access to certain records. Now, audit requirements for the what we call eligible facilities. When performing audits under the program, the certification bodies, it's required that these audits are unannounced, that essentially they are surprise audits. Certification bodies must notify FDA and their accreditation bodies upon discovering a condition that could cause or contribute a serious risk to public health. This notification must be immediate and in English. Certification bodies must submit regulatory audit reports on certain key data that they collect or gather during regulatory audits. And then they also must maintain, when they conduct consultative audits, they must maintain such reports in records which can be accessed under Section 414 of the Act. So there are some related FDA actions that tie to the third-party certification body. As we mentioned, the VQIP draft guidance was published in June of 2015, explains how VQIP will work, and would just supplement to the question that we had on VQIP. Because third-party certification relates to VQIP, another requirement for a VQIP application is that the importer submit evidence that their foreign supplier facility has undergone certification under this rule. So, yes, as I've said. And then second, the model accreditation standards draft guidance we published in July 2015, and it contains recommendations on the qualifications that third-party certification bodies and their agents should have in areas such as education, experience, or preventing conflicts of interest, for example. And then finally, FDA has issued a proposed rule, actual regulation, establishing user fees for accreditation and certification bodies under the program. Congress has mandated that FDA establish user fees to recover the cost of our operations under the rule. And so it's important to note that the program cannot begin operation until this user fee rule is finalized and FDA is able to collect user fees. As I mentioned, the program will begin after the final user fee rule takes effect, and once that happens, then the accreditation bodies can begin to apply for recognition by FDA. And then once FDA has recognized accreditation bodies, then third-party certification bodies could seek accreditation from their accreditation bodies that FDA has recognized. And of course, more information about the rule is on our FSMA website on fda.gov. So I'd be happy to take your questions now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.